think about this. That record's 40 years old.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's 40 years old, mate. Robbing phone boxes, then spending all the money in the record shops.
That funded your vinyl habit. Yeah.
I went and I shook his hand and I went to him, Kings of Pressure. You know how to reach us.
You know how to reach us.
And he went to me,
yeah.
Yeah, and he said, no one ever talks to me about that record.
Talking about Graff and all that, you know, there was some wicked writers from like the Wood Green area, you know, like Fume, Bomber.
Fume's the first person that come to my head.
Really?
And he ended up a raver at Labyrinth of the train station and that. The amount of graffiti. Do you remember?
It was everywhere, mate. It was everywhere.
My memories just take me back to bunking school, and I've got every single one up there.
Nah.
Just say, Large Enough Pez was a graffiti writer.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's how we started doing the Fantastic Ibiza flyers and all of the early flyers.
Mind blowing.
This is mental. And it was like they was all screaming out acid. Like they'd hired a strobe light. And, mate, it was mental.
Yeah.
It was mental. This one night I've come off at 12. Imagine being 15, already nervous of the world that you're in. Come my dad's office nut. My dad is had a pill and he's out the front of the club going, oh, fucking no, Joe. I know, Phil. They're all from Tottenham. I know all these little fuckers because they was all younger than him. That stuff really was happening behind the scenes with people taking over raves, gun crime behind the scenes of taking over events. You know, like there was...
Scarlet, fantastic. No memories
tonight.
No memories tonight. No
memories tonight. Water Boys,
Hole on the Moon. Yeah.
Julio Di Piscopo, Stop Bajon. You had Kalijah. Oh, mate, that Jesus on the payroll. Chris Rea, Josephine.
Yeah.
City Lights. You had William Pitt, City Lights, and how I learned about all of that music.
Let's do this like Brutus. So, lights, camera, action. On this week's show, we have someone who lives and breathes music, who was a resident DJ at the legendary East London club Labyrinth, who fired up many a dance floor with his killer sets and blew the roof off many a club and stirred the ravers up into like a mad frenzy. And he wrote a book called The Love Dove Generation, who's an absolute diamond geezer. I'm excited to say we have the one and the only Billy Bunter in the place. Woo!
I love that. I love that. Thank you very much, mate. And I've got to say, it is an absolute honour to be on your platform. Like as a huge hip hop head, like the Said G interviews, Ragga Twins,
Man Parish, yeah,
Man Paris, like Skinny Man, all of the people you've had on this. Platform, and here I am, some old rave hardcore DJ on here, and it's a real honour, especially during lockdown. I was glued to so many of the interviews, and yeah, thank you very much for having me.
No, Billy, listen, it's an absolute honour to have you on my podcast or whatever you want to call it. And I want to also give a big shout out to Chocky Rock, We Rock Hard. Big up the Chock stuff. We love Chock stuff for basically, you know, getting us two together to do this. And as I say, Billy, it's a real honour, and I can't wait to delve into into your background, your history, because I know you had a very similar kind of upbringing to me in terms of music and the way it all progressed from electro, hip hop into the house, house and rave scene. So it's going to be an absolute wicked interview. So anyone watching, subscribe to the channel, share this around the socials, and because we're going to take this back to the start, back to where it all started. Yeah.
Right back, yeah.
So, Billy, first two questions, I always ask is, whereabouts are you from and what was it like growing up, as a kid?
Well, originally, I was born in North Middlesex Hospital over in Edmonton. My family are all from Wood Green. For the first few years of my life, I lived in Tottenham with my mum and dad and my godparents. my mum and dad decided to move away to a quiet place called St Neots to bring me up and to get my dad away from all of the wrongness that he was up to. Sadly, that vision and that dream for my mum didn't quite manifest in the way that she hoped it would, because my dad just kept going back to Wood Green and Tottenham and getting up to no good 4 or 5 days a week and was never around. So in the end, we spent a whole lot of time at my nan's in Wood Green growing up. My mum then moved to Potter's Bar, which is just outside of North London, and basically I was just surrounded by my dad, my uncles around Wood Green. They was either getting up to no good, getting up to joyous no good, not harming no one, but just taking anything that they could, or working on the market stalls.
So really? What the market stalls? What? Whereabouts?
Well, my it's down in Wood Green High Road. My uncles had a few fruit and veg stalls. So yeah, it was a fun upbringing and not your normal one.
I can see, Billy. I can see where your character comes from, because you know those market traders were absolute diamonds. You know they were full of energy, full of soul. You know, and you go to the market, wouldn't you? And those characters would make it.
Yeah, and it kind of led me, just going forward a little bit, those characters and that character of how the makeup of like doing whatever you wanted without hurting no one, and it kind of led me to getting thrown out of school at 14. But way before that, my dad, me and my dad used to go out robbing phone boxes. So I don't know if you know that there was a machine that logged onto phone boxes. I mean, this was in the 80s. This was in like the mid 80s when I was like 10, 11.
Yeah, don't go grassing yourself up. Do you know what I mean?
You can't. People always say this. People always say this underneath these interviews.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it was like 40 years
I know.
ago.
You was like proper young. Yeah. And a lot of people were at stuff like that anyway.
And my dad actually got caught for it, which is another story for later on in the interview. But yeah, we used to, how I discovered music, electro, was me and my dad used to be out up to no good. And he introduced me to Electro 5 in like 84, 85 when I was 10.
Electro 5, that was wicked. You had like the break. I think it's Breaker's Revenge on there, Knights of the Turntable. Breaker's Revenge,
Egyptian Lover,
Release Elite, Yourself,
Captain Rock, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Knights of the Turntable. It was brilliant, and my dad introduced me to Electro 5, and when we used to be up to no good around the West End, he used to take me into Groove Records.
Wow.
So when I was like 10 years of age.
I wonder how your old man got into the electro.
Right, how we got into electro, and there was like being on the market stalls, there was like loads of like youngsters on the stalls, and they was all in. This was like pre-acid house, pre-rave, like, and they would be listening to electros and stuff like that. And my mum and dad caught on very early that I was into music, like when I was like 5, 6, late 70s, early 80s, they would buy me every number one that got into the pop chart. And then when there was like certain records, like, I don't know, let's say The Message, that period of The Message from Curtis Blow, If I Ruled the World, that 3-year period between like 82 and 85, where they realised that I liked the rap records that were out. And then my dad was hearing the youngsters on the stalls into this electro stuff, and he heard Electro 5 one day, that some of the lads were playing, and he brought it home and he said, I think you'll like this, son. And that was it. I was just hooked. It wasn't just no longer just, these were the, out of the more commercialized records that crossed over at such a young age that I was kind of gravitating towards. Once he plonked that Electro 5 tape into
you fell in love. You fell in love with it.
The hypnoticness of the flow of the mix.
Yeah.
You know, you had more commercial records that had crossed over into the charts growing up. But when you heard Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Fast Life, and the stories of the way in which they told the story of what was going on, from that, even now, through my entire rave career to this day, New York and hip-hop and the stories of Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, them stories have just fascinated me. And still to this day, I keep up abreast with all of the current podcasts and all of the goings on in those places, because the story of New York fascinates me, and that Electro 5 hearing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was literally like bang,
bang, yeah,
like right there. And then obviously it's quite interesting. I've had a coffee now. It's quite interesting thinking about it because then like now everything's a road to discovery. So once he introduced me to Electro 5, then you start going back to the first, like Electro 1, then you discover UK Electro, and it's quite bizarre because there's two things going on, or interesting, not bizarre. For me, there's two things going on in my mind in retrospect and in hindsight. One, when I first heard UK Electro, it was like, wow.
What did you hear? Would you say, was it like Nutriment, London Bridge is Falling Down? Because to me, that's got that kind of electro feel to it.
When I say UK Electro, I mean the Electro UK album on Street Sounds. So they did the UK Electro one. So
yeah.
So that was so instrumental, and there was something really. There was something futuristic about the whole series, but UK Electro, now when I listen back to it, you can hear in 84 elements of house in it.
100%.
In some of the tracks, right?
Yeah.
So then, like, at that road to discovery, like, I would have been 10 in 1985, mate. I was 10.
You was proper young, weren't you? Yeah, proper
really,
young.
Really young in this world of my dad and uncles and their friends, either doing things I shouldn't have been doing with them or discovering this amazing music. So
Billy, when you fell in love with Electro, was you representing like the elements of hip hop? I mean, did you start trying to do a bit of body popping, breaking?
Yeah, and I was
useless.
I was terrible at dancing. That's what, they say DJs can't dance.
Yeah.
That's how I ended up at that. I couldn't body pop. I was rubbish at art. But yeah, for back to my point there, we'll get on to graffiti, and in my love and passion for music from Electro 5 and UK Electro remains the same to me. To this day, you hear dance, a more dancier in some of the tracks, even 4/4 edge on UK Electro. And then on Electro 5, hearing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Fast Life. Even though my career and I'm known as a rave DJ and a dance music DJ, I can identify in UK Electro a dance element, and then in Electro 5 I can hear from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde my absolute fascination with rap music and the stories it's told and the pitch conjures up. Yeah, my two fascinations with music still to this day are locked away in those Electro albums.
And the most important thing as well, back in those early days, it was the 808, the drum machine. I mean, tracks like, Planet Rock and what, Egyptian Lover was doing, and those 808 beats were incredible. How good was like Planet Rock and Rock at Your Own Risk, Play Your Own Risk, Planet Patrol.
Play at Your Own Risk is just... is an incredible track, like
100%.
we do regular shows on my regular electro shows on my Monday show on Cool FM. And yesterday we rerun an old electro show from a few years ago. And as well as all the really underground, unknown stuff, we play stuff like Play at Your Own Risk. And it's just as hypnotic and just as infectious and just as timeless and just as catchy, if not so more.
Yeah, you listen to it.
So more. And think about this, that record's 40 years old.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's 40 years old, mate.
That came out in 1983, didn't it? It was such
83, yeah.
And 82 was April 82 was Planet Rock. I'll tell you another one as well that got me was Scorpio, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. That kind of electro.
They're all here. All of those records. This is one big wall of electro and hip hop.
Did you manage collecting? I know, like, you bought the Street Sounds albums, and that was a great place to buy them because obviously vinyl was really expensive. But did you start seriously collecting, the Electro 12s when you had a bit of money? Right. So, my life's mission, my lifetime mission, because I kind of have two musical heads. And it's like I have the Billy Daniel Bunter rave hardcore DJ that has been going for 30 odd years, which everyone knows for all of these banging loud in your face rave sets. Then I have me personally, which has revolved around electro and hip hop and soul and funk and boogie, which takes me right back to going to Groove Records with my dad and Music Power Records with my dad. And once I start, it's mad. Like me and Slipmatt used to do a lot of work together on our mix albums for Ministry of Sound, and I'm younger than most people, even in the rave scene, like the names in the rave scene as a DJ. And me and Matt had a very similar, like we all do of a certain age, a very similar intro into hip hop in the 80s, then discovering acid house. And I used to go through his records. He used to go through mine. He'd be like, how have you got all this? How? You was only like 12, 13, 14. How? And how I acquired so many records at that age was where me and my dad were up to no good, robbing phone boxes, then spending all the money in the record shops. That funded your vinyl habit. Yeah.
That's how I acquired those records. But... Wow. Fast forward to the past, say, 5 years, my always my life mission was to own. You know what it's like. We all get little collecting perks. We all get these little kind of like completist missions, like as a collector of records. My lifetime mission was to own every single 12-inch that ever featured on
the Electro series.
Right, so there I have every single album, which is we all love those albums, but my lifetime's mission was to own every single 12-inch, or if the track was just licensed from an album and it never come out on 12, I had to then have the album. And in, like, let's say 85, when I was 10, the records that I amassed with my dad were like 85, 86, 87 hip hop. So all of the stuff previous, all of the stuff that was on the Electro, which is my first road to discovery, I didn't have the full knowledge, or it was slightly out of time by a few years to collect those records. And yeah, it's been my lifetime's mission to get every single one. And I finally completed it in 2020 during lockdown, and I brought a box of records here, and I tell you what, I don't know whether there you go, Star Raid 19th Fleet Crew on Electro 10 was the missing piece of the puzzle for years.
Was it really hard to get hold of, Billy?
It become really hard to get hold of, and the bizarre thing is, it's probably the least in retrospect then, it was so fast, it was like a chalk and cheese one. And and it also become one of the more expensive ones, like 200 to 300 quid. And there was never any for sale. And then one evening, and like literally in lockdown, I went for a wee at like 3 in the morning. And when you're a vinyl enthusiast, you look on your Discogs and you refresh your items up for sale, and there it come up from an American seller, and I was like, you know what? I'm treating myself, and I finally completed that, and it was just a lifetime mission. And I think with this music and with this stuff, and I don't know about you, but it's that feeling of nostalgia that takes us back to our younger days. And like, if it wasn't for the Electros, and if it wasn't for this music, and if it wasn't for my love for this stuff, and my dad introducing me to it, I wouldn't have had a lifetime's fascination with music.
As I say, at the start, you really do kind of live and breathe music. And keeping on that music thing, you're saying, you love the hip hop and all that. Talking about like the DJs, did you ever go to like any of the DMCs and check out like, Cutmaster, Swift DJ, Pogo, Cash Money, Jazzy Jeff? I was
too young. So in those kind of first lot of periods. So my first ever DJ hero is Mike Allen. My first ever DJ hero is Mike Allen, just sitting there once discovering the Electros every Friday and Saturday. Record like Mike Allen, and that was my first intro to a DJ playing this music. And it was so he sounds a bit like obsessive, but he was my first and only DJ hero kind of thing. That was like the awakening of like, that's what I want to do. And then I think like, and then I started discovering, or slightly afterwards, Dave Pearce on a Monday night on Night FM. And I talk like now, like Dave comes and plays at some of our events, and I talk to Dave about those times there, and Roger Johnson as well. He lives up the road from me. And me and Roger used to be resident at Labyrinth, but after it was like Mike Allen, then there was like Dave Pearce and Roger Johnson. Westwood was on LWR. I think by the time Westwood got on LWR, by the time Mike Allen kind of drifted away, the music kind of left him, and then Dave and Roger themselves become more like house acid DJs, and then us as youngsters, it was acid house. But Cash Money, still to this day, I'm just obsessed when Cash Money won the DMC championship, and I still follow Cash Money's mixes of what he does now. And like anyone from that era when Cash Money won the DMC, it's like still to this day you can go back to it and the tingles, and you know every mix and how funky he is with it. And it's like, it just again, it's that nostalgia. It's going back to when we was younger and just being enthralled by this thing,
Yeah, I mean, Cash Money, I interviewed him, and when he done that, when he done his thing at the DMC at the Albert Hall, his monitor went at the back, so he couldn't really hear properly what he was doing on the decks. That's how that's how amazing Cash Money is, and big up to Cash Money. But record digging and sniffing out your crop and all that was a huge part of being a DJ. I mean, you was going Groove Records, which was a wicked shop in its own, wasn't it? Down in I think it's Greek Street, wasn't it?
Greek Street in Soho,
where else was you buying your crop from?
Well, my two go-to shops were, first and foremost, it was Music Power in Haringey.
Right.
Music Power in Haringey, Green Lanes. It was literally walking distance from my uncle's stall in Wood Green. So you could walk up there in like 15, 20 minutes. And that was my that was my local, if you like, or shop that I could go to all of the time. And then Groove Records was my second favourite, and they was the two where I amassed most records and most knowledge at that time, and via listening to Mike Allen, Dave Pearce and Roger Johnson. Then also where I first started hearing like acid house come through, and then discovering like Jazzy M on LWR, and it's like that whole kind of 86 to 89 period. There is so much there's so much coming at us.
Oh, big time. Yeah, music was really kind of growing, wasn't it? Because it went from like the funk, the electro hip hop, into like house, acid house. Then you had like drum and bass, jungle, trip hop. It was all evolving so fast, wasn't it? Throughout the whole of the 80s was like
late 80s, early 90s. Everything evolved so quickly.
Massively. And I'd like to do a big RIP as well to Mike Allen, because he was these shows on Capitol were wicked.
Mate, legendary. Like as a fan, I have so many like fanboy moments of that era. So whether it's being mates with Dave Pearce, Roger Johnson, living up the road from me and becoming like a resident with him at the same club. Like I'm that much of a geek with it all. Must have been like early 2000s. Like I was driving back from a gig, had the radio on, and I had talk radio or talk, whatever one it was. And I was thinking, I recognise this voice. It was only Mike Allen doing like a talk show. And I was like, Mike Allen. And I tracked him down and got talking to him on the phone, like just as like this, just going, like I'm not a weirdo stalker, but I was listening to the radio at the M1. And like, I just want to say that you was my hero in the 80s. Another person who fascinates me, who I, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I also tracked down, was Ramelzy.
Wow.
Ramelzy fascinates me. And in my quest, and this is how far my quest went back, like pre-Discogs, to buy every single Electro record that was featured on the Street Sounds Electro albums, I could not locate a Ramelzy and K-Rob beat bop for Love Nor Money. Somehow I managed to get Ramelzy's phone number.
No.
And yeah. And I left a message on his answer machine, and he called me back, and we had a really good. I will remember the chat forever, because he was saying like, "What do you do?" And I was saying like, "I'm a hardcore rave DJ," and he was telling me about the hardcore rave scene in America and all of this stuff. But alas, he never owned a copy of Bebop himself. I eventually picked up a copy, but yeah, I have some great sort of fanboy moments of managing to track these kind of people down or having conversations. So, do you know what? Hank Shockley.
Wow, from the bomb squad.
Right, Hank Shockley.
Wow.
Was a good 15 years ago in Midem, the French music conference, right? So me, Slipmat, my missus Sonia, we was over there working and doing business and stuff. And Hank Shockley was doing a set at one event, and then there was like a house event somewhere else. You know what them things are like, them music industry conference things, they're all a bit wanky and that. And it was like, no, I ain't going to the house thing, sod all that, whoever it was at the time. I want to go and hear Hank Shockley. So we've gone over there, and at the end, like, I'm going to Sonia and Slipknot, I'm going to go and meet Hank Shockley. And I went and I shook his hand, and I went to him, Kings of Pressure, You Know How to Reach Us.
You know how to reach us.
And he went to me,
yeah,
and he said, no one ever talks to me about that record. And I said, mate, like, that is my...
What a tune.
Early teens right there.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot begin to explain to you like what that record means to me. And then
And on the B side, you got to give me the mic as well. Give me the mic.
Give me the. It's all there. It's all there. it's all there. And when we released Jumping Jack Frostbook, Hank Shockley did the foreword for Frostbook, and I was like,
wow,
because I remain a fan of all of this stuff forever. It's literally like
it's etched into you. Yeah.
Like I'm a fan of this stuff forever. Like everything that has inspired me about that music and the art and the graffiti and the stuff like that, I've taken it with me into especially in the modern days with the art galleries and the seminars and the books and the stuff we do. But yeah, it's a real passion of mine as much as being a rave DJ is.
You know, you really do kind of live and breathe, you know, this music. I mean, you know, keeping on this kind of hip hop vein, you know, talking about graph and all that, you know, there was some wicked writers from like the Wood Green area, you know, like Fume, ID, Bomber.
Fume's the first person that comes to my head.
Really?
And he ended up a raver at Labyrinth. He ended up a raver at Labyrinth.
Because I went up to Wood Green in the around 86, 87, and I met up with Fume and ID, Bomber, and all them lot.
And see, do you know where they used to write? There was some flats, and they used to write in that kind of.
That's right.
The playground.
That's where I was.
Right?
Yeah.
My aunt lived in them flats there, and I used to go down. I used to stay at my aunt's, go down, fascinated at the graffiti that they was doing.
Yeah, they was wicked. They was up.
And again, how you connect things. It's like in like 1991 when Fume used to go to Labyrinth raving, and I used to think that's Fume.
Yeah.
Like, and you used to see his name everywhere.
Fume's a legend. Big up to Fume, man. He's wicked.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, there was books out like Subway Art and Spray Can Art. Did you get into did you get them books like Spray Can Art?
Because I'm on your channel.
Did you pull some out?
They were the Bibles once again. Once again, the road to discovery, and we all do it, right? And like as we get older, we get deeper and deeper in. But my first I'm excited. My first roads to discovery were Electro 5. Then you start not just scratching the surface, but going deeper and deeper in. And then you discover Subway Art. Then you discover Wild Style. Then you discover Style Wars. Then you start discovering all of this stuff. And then it just manifests. And for me, my manifestation of love for art, like this young lady, Jelly Artist, Rave Not War, she's hugely inspired by the rave scene. Then she's all over, well, she's just been in Mexico writing, and like where she's inspired by rave, where she's got such an old school vibe about it, I'm just enthralled by it. So at my art galleries that I do, I invite her along to show her, like this is a record. Junior Tomlin done this artwork for a DJ rap record I released, and my inspiration for art and my inspiration for art galleries comes from this. And even though I'm a rave DJ, even though historically my name is within this rave scene, I take so much from what inspired me then. So we've released like 6 or 7 books on Music Monday's book publishing, and if it wasn't for my love for discovery, like with Subway Art, I would never have had the inkling to want to release books for the rave scene.
It's incredible, Billy, honestly, because you know a lot of the DJs I kind of talk to, you know, all their history is kind of very, very similar to yours, to mine. You know, they all started really from that kind of early funk, and then obviously the electro, the hip hop, and then you know, as we said, it just catapulted, didn't it, into like you know, the acid house and all that. Yeah. We used when I was like me again. I said earlier, I ended up a DJ because
I was rubbish at art and I couldn't dance. I tried spinning on my back. I couldn't do it. I tried coming up with a cool name to tag, and I couldn't. And I'm still really close friends with them to this day. My best mate from school, Anthony, and one of my closest friends, Gary. We used to get on the trains on a Saturday afternoon. We'd go round Groove Records, Unity Records, all of those shops, and they would hang off the back of the trains writing their name at it. I couldn't write a name. Two, I was much younger than them and like a little bit scared to hang off the back of the train. We used to go to remember Finsbury Park? Finsbury Park train station in the mid 80s. The amount of graffiti in the derelict part of the train station and that. The amount of graffiti. Do you remember?
It was everywhere, mate. It was everywhere.
My memories just take me back to bunking school and going and looking at graffiti, even though I couldn't write it. I was fascinated by
Billy, the buses. You know, you get on the bus and there's like they was covered head to toe. It's like
yeah.
And that was the days where you could like smoke a fag on the bus, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's it's such exciting times, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I just take all of those things that I learned and loved with me throughout my life.
And hip hop really kind of expanded our musical knowledge. And I say that because, a lot of the hip hop tracks were sampling a thing called the break. And the break, were using a lot of sort of funky style tracks. And it was really they were getting really creative with their kind of production. So the kind of, our musical knowledge was really expanding through the breaks. Did you ever collect like the ultimate breaks and beats or super disco breaks?
I've got every single one up there.
Nah.
Do you want to say?
No, I believe you.
Like literally every single one up there. But like again, Road to Discovery is it's like as I've got older, like I love discovering like music that was made during like the Detroit riots of the late 60s. So as you say, like hip hop opened our mind to breaks. Public Enemy opened our mind to political and racial things that were going on. Yeah, people like Rakim touching on the 5% and stuff like that. Like, there's all these little nuggets that were coming to us as British teens. Now, as we are much older, there's even more discovery out there. So like, I love, just like hip hop had that effect on us in the late 80s and even through the 90s. Even if you discovered and was part of the rave scene, if you still had that love for hip hop, there was still so much coming at you. But like now, my road to discoveries go deep. Like I say, like I'm fascinated by music that was made during the Detroit riots of the late 60s. I'm just fascinated with what is hidden within those records and the messages, whether it's fun records of the time or whether it's politically charged records of the time, whether it's records that have so much soul and sadness in them that they become timeless. It's the discovery, and I think hip-hop as an entry point for our age group taught us to go back and learn even more than just ultimate breaks and beats, learn even more than just knowing every track on an Electro album. It teaches, or for me, it taught me to just keep digging, keep going, keep digging, keep going. And it, like, even to this day, like, I buy records every week, I dig every week, I search every week. I whether it's getting sent all the new rave records or whether it's being on my own road to discovery and from music of the 50s, 60s, it's like there's so much locked away in this music that teaches us and it progresses us and points in time, so we can talk so vividly of the 80s and because we were there as this stuff was coming at us. But we can't of the 60s or the 50s. So go back and piecing it together through music and the artist stories and what was going around. And there's more. It's exciting when you do more than scratch the surface.
Oh, 100%. And also, you know, you have to kind of know your history as well and how it all kind of develops. Have you got, you know, you're saying you got like Style Wars and documentaries like that. Have you got things like Flying Cups Fleas and Rubble Kings?
I've watched them. Rubble King's brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Do you know a really proud moment of mine and taking it back to Chucky? A really, really proud moment of mine when they did their Robbo art gallery. I think it must have been a good 12, 13, 14 years ago. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Chucky brought Kel First, Mayor, himself, up to my radio show on Cool FM. And I took my Subway Arts, I took my Wild Style Anniversary Edition.
Did you get them signed?
Come on! Of course I did. You know when Mayor's jumping off of the Wild Style thing, there's him, Lady Pink, there's a few of them.
Do you know I've done that?
God.
I've gone to the amphitheatre in New York and I've jumped off the amphitheatre. There was 5 of us and we copied that scene, like all jumping off of it. Yeah,
and Mayor signed that for me. Do you know what? You'll like this. So, Grandmaster Kaz, I'm full of Grandmaster Kaz, and I've been on the hip hop tour over there, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And I was watching an interview with Grandmaster Kaz on Premier's channel. It's mad. You wouldn't think I was an aging happy hardcore DJ, would you? and I was watching. Me and Sonia were watching this Grandmaster Kaz interview with Premier, quite a recent one. And Grandmaster Kaz says there's something big going on in New York next year for the 50 years anniversary, 73 to 2023. Sonia said to me, there's our holiday next year. We're going to go to New York, right? And this is how music works. This is how law of attraction works. Within 30 or 40 minutes, I said to Sonia, you're not going to believe this. She went, what? I went, I've just had a promoter from New York wants to book me in 2023. And it was like,
wow, that's yeah.
Like this promoter messaged me to say, we do this Sunday night dance club and we want you to come and do like an old school rave set, blah, blah, blah. And that's how my life works. So it's like, on one hand, there's this Billy Daniel Bunter mental rave DJ, and then on the other hand, there's this like just absolute fan of hip hop culture. And there I am within 30 minutes of Son saying, that's our holiday next year. Do you want to come here? This guy, I don't know him. Like it come through Instagram, you know? And it's like, wow. That's how my love and passion and law of attraction for music works. So it ticks all the boxes. Going to be a mental rave DJ and going over there the year of the 50-year anniversary of it all.
That'll be incredible.
But
Billy, going back to the breaks, you know, the breaks were heavily sampled actually in quite a lot of the early kind of records, weren't they? Was there like funky drummer and, you know, breaks like that? Have you got any kind of like favourite breaks that you used to love? You know, I know it's a hard question because there's so many, but have you got a few favourite?
Incredible Bongo Band.
Oh yeah,
and I'll tell you for why. Like, it would be so obvious for me to say Winston's Amon Brother. It would be so obvious for me to say that. But it is Apache, and I've used it every Monday for 14 years on my Cool FM show to introduce the show, of which I talk over. And I just don't. It's just the whole track is the ultimate Bboy track.
It really is.
It's the whole track,
wicked, isn't it?
He's the ultimate Bboy track, and it's like, so if there was one favourite, it would be that. And of course, I am completely geeky over Amon. Like, I've got the mono 7-inch, the stereo 7-inch, the reissued soul jazz 7-inch. I've got the bootleg 12-inch. I've got the reissue album that Soul Jazz did, in the same way that I'm obsessive over Wild Style and have to, have all the different editions released. But it would be obvious for me to say, Amen Brother, it is incredible bongo band Apache.
It's absolutely wicked. Quickly going back to the pirate radio stations, Billy, because this is before the internet kicked off. So basically,
and we're talking pre-acid still, aren't we? We're talking pre-rave still.
Still pre-rave. So like the underground clubs were basically being promoted via pirate radio stations, flyers, or word of mouth. Down the pub or whatever. You say you're going there tonight. Can you tell me like the importance of the pirate radio?
Come on, as a 10-year-old. So, like I say, my first introduction was Mike Allen, Capital Radio commercial station. But again, back to that scratching the surface kind of thing, and then all of a sudden discovering LWR, discovering Kiss FM, and
and then you had like Centreforce, didn't you, and Sunrise,
which come later, which were like the latter 80s. But like, pirate radio was just essential in every step of the way. So if we go, okay, so me and you are really passionate about hip hop, and that's quite evident as we're talking. There's this connection going on. But if we then start talking about the road to discovering the influence of acid house and rave, so while you're flicking through the dials, while you're sort of like not just hearing Mike Allen on Capital, which was a legal station, or Roger and Dave on Night FM, which was a legal station, then you start, then you discover LWR. Then you discover Jazzy M on LWR, and there's this whole different form of music. And then as a young, you asked earlier about going to hear any of these people live in the mid to late 80s. Because I was 10, 11, 12, but you'd hear Jazzy M talk about gigs, you'd hear Westwood talk about gigs, you'd hear Trevor Nelson, all of these people, Roger, you'd hear them talk about, and then you'd go into the shops and see the flyers. And then by the time sort of like, Jazzy M, undoubtedly in London, he's the man who introduced us to the first Acid House show. Like here he is. And when you were going into Groove Records and Music Power, you would hear the acid records as well whilst the hip hop records are playing. And I just think pirate radio will forever be pivotal. So if we go from the mid 80s of whether it's Westwood or Jazzy M on LWR, one playing hip hop, one playing acid, that's teaching us. Then by the time it got to the rave, the acid scene, of which Jazzy M was a good few years ahead, he was right there first. Then you talk of Centreforce and Sunrise in like 88, 89, at the boom of like that whole phone line. The pirate radio is just pivotal. And then when it comes to the hardcore, it's pivotal once again, because that's how a new generation of people are hearing these fast, ferocious beats. Then by the time jungle gets here, pirate radio is just essential to any growth and awareness of an underground music scene.
I remember tuning into Cool FM, and I used to love it. It's like, I'm obviously quite a bit older than you, Billy. I'm about probably seven years older than you. But
you old git.
I know, but I loved that kind of, when I used to tune into Cool FM now again, you used to get the aerial to try and pick up the signal. Remember, like moving the aerial around. But I remember a guy, I always remember him rapping, goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, come alive. My DJ kicking on the 945, saying
945,
yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, come alive. My DJ kicking on the 945. I mean, what FM was so much energy to it.
It's so catchy, so hooky. Like even in the mid 90s. I mean, we fast forwarding 10 years here from what we were talking about, but like in the mid-90s, I would go and play all like the big Helter Skelters and all them raves. And I would just be glued to Cool FM on a Sunday afternoon, Navigator, Ragga Twins, just glued to it. And what, even though like I was doing the hardcore at that point, and even though we fast forwarded 10 years, what it reminded me of was like, because I love my reggae as well. And what it reminded me of was the mid 80s, like Volcano Sound, Skateland, and that kind of stuff. And like hearing the way they chatted over the jungle, and it was so different to what we was doing at the hardcore raves. And I used to just be glued to it on a Sunday afternoon as a music fan.
Yeah,
as a music fan.
It was absolutely wicked. But also, you know, Billy, also like, you know, flyers were also a huge part of the, you know, of the promotion. You know, you used to like leave the club and, you know, you'd get handed out loads of flyers for like the next following weekend. And there was some like wicked flyers. I mean, can you did you have a few kind of favourite flyers that you absolutely loved? Because the artwork was incredible.
Always Pez, always Pez on the Helter Skelter flyers, like, and flyers again, road to discovery, right? Keeping it going even further back. Like, I love looking at flyers. I love it. Like there was like in the other room in the bookshelf, there's like a brilliant. I think it was born in the Bronx again. Comparing things alongside the hip hop, like you can go back to flyers in like the mid 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and you can, the way things are worded, the massive sound system and the you know, like the hype of like the DJ, so it's always there. Like, you know, like in the late 70s, early 80s, you had what they called the Soul Mafia with their Soul Weekenders. Mate, you look at some of them flyers, they could be late with the wording, not the intricate art, the wording. They could be acid house flyers or early 90s rave flyers. Like when I look at the back of some of the Labyrinth flyers, just the typeset, and there's nothing flash or designer about them. It's just, there's the DJs, there's the hype, and you can go right back to the 70s for all that stuff. But obviously, like with the excitement of rave, like by the time it got to your Pez's and your Junior Tomlins and people, it was just like this bam, like. And again, as lovers of graffiti, you can really appreciate it.
100%.
You can really appreciate what they all did. And Pez, larging up Pez, was a graffiti writer.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's how we started doing the Fantastic Ibiza flyers and all of the early flyers, because he was a graffiti artist going to these raves. And yeah, it was the promoters who got people like Pez, well, not people like, because there's only one Pez, very flamboyant, you know, taking the spectacle beyond just how big the sound system is and top. You know, remember the time when, like, especially in 88, 89, like I remember going in record shops and where we've done so many art galleries that celebrate the rave scene. There's flyers for raves where they don't even tell you the DJ, it just says top DJs from London town.
Yeah.
And those things would get like thousands of people at them.
Yeah, some of them flyers were absolutely incredible, weren't they? And I wish I'd kept hold of a load of them, because some of them, like, you know, blew me away, like the Shum one and Land of Oz, and, you know.
Me too, mate. Like I had,
some of them biology. Was it the biology ones as well? They were wicked as well.
Some flyers are going for like £1,000, £1,500. Like in that time of like 88, 89, and then when I got my first job in a record shop, like I used to hoard the flyers. But living through it, unless it's on vinyl, I never appreciated it It was there. They were just in the, and mate, I had literally every flyer that I'd collected in the late. You're gonna cry. I think I could cry. I had all the flyers that I collected in the late 80s. Every flyer I'd been on, every flyer I hadn't been on as I was coming out of gigs and stuff, and I thought I'd packed it all away nicely in the shed, because not more stuff can go up in the loft, because the loft is full of flipping old rave memorabilia and clothing and more records and old dats. So I put it in the shed. Come back 4 or 5 years later, all of it disintegrated.
No.
I feel ashamed for even saying this on camera for people to look back on, and if only I had the same. It's not respect. It's like the record. My thing is records, and like I say, it felt so disposable, flyers, but it wasn't. It was like it meant. Especially now, it means so much. Like there was a flyer, I think, a flyer from like one of those originals that went for like 1,500-1,800. I know what it was. It was I know what it was, and I can't remember, mate. I know what it was, but yeah, them flyers are fetching money. Yeah,
they was beautiful. I've still got a shim flyer up in the loft, an original shim flyer. But yeah, I'd never sell it because it means so much history. It'd be like selling like Planet Rock.
Yeah.
Even though I've got a turntable now, I would never sell it because it means so much to me. Do you know what I mean? It's part of my life. Let's head back to acid house, buddy. You know, how did you get into like the acid house stuff?
Right, acid house. As you can see, my absolute passion is hip hop and electro. My best friend from school, Anthony, and we both got thrown out of school when we was 14. He was into acid. I was into hip hop. And we used to go record shopping. Still to this day, we're like, in my film, actually, he's portrayed in the film. And actually, the set designer and the writer, they're creating Groove Records and Music Power in the film. But he really got me into it. He really, really, really got, and he's 5 years older than me. And he's on Head Candy and labels like that now, mate. He's like big into his house, and he really got me into his stuff. And he used to say, "Oh, what like pub? You want to be listening to this Adonis and Marshall Jefferson and Tyree and Fast Eddie and all of these like really minimalistic, like 8, 10, 12-minute long tracks." And I was so enthralled with hip hop that at first it didn't really capture me. I was just so into the hip hop, and then like all of us, you guys who are older, the transformation was you going from hip hop events to acid events, and then before you know it, here it is, you know, this awakening. Whereas for me, it was through pirate radio and through record shops and through my friend Anthony. And in 1988, so me and Anthony would go record shopping. I'd buy all the hip hop, he'd buy all the acid. I slowly started buying some acid. He would buy some acid house, and when I'd go record shopping with my dad, when we was out doing the phone boxes, we'd buy the odd acid, but it was always hip hop. And then a lot of the youngsters, I mean, they're not young anymore, they're all 55, 60, on the stall in 88, 89, they was all out raving, popping the pills and all this. And they had a party in the Lordship pub in Wood Green, which was just down from Silver City in Wood Green, where Labyrinth and 2000 AD and people used to do. And they knew that me and my friend Anthony had a lot of records. So they said to us, you two come and DJ. You two come and DJ. So this was like 88. I had nowhere near as many acid records as Anthony, but between us both, we had a lot of tunes. So they actually, neither of us could really DJ. We just had records. Like there was no kind of need to want to mix or anything. It was just we love records kind of thing.
So you was more like selectors.
Yeah. And we did this. They hired the sound system. They even hired decks. We did not have a fucking clue what we was doing. Sorry to swear on your wonderful platform. And this was like 88, right? And I was 13. Anthony was 17, 18. He wasn't driving yet. So here we are with these records upstairs of the Lordship pub in Wood Green. And there was like 150 people, which in some instances doesn't sound a lot, but in other instances it's brilliant, right? And here we are, young, I'm barely a teenager, all of these people off their nut on ecstasy, and we're playing this music, and I was just like, wow, this is mental. And it was like they was all screaming out acid, like they'd hired a strobe light, and mate, it was mental. It was mental, right? And check this, at the end they took around a hat. They took around the hat, and everyone was putting money in for me and Anthony, and we made like 150, 200 quid between us. And the following morning we was in Music Power buying records, and from that moment it was like hip hop just left me. Hip hop left me, and then again, Law of Attraction. That was 88. In 89, me and my dad was over in Bethnal Green, up to no good, and there was a record shop called Pools for Music at the end of Bethnal Green Road as you get up to Whitechapel. And he was like, "Oh, there's a record shop there." So we go in. It didn't look like much. It wasn't Groove. It wasn't a Music Power. It wasn't a Wired for Sound in Hackney. It wasn't a Bluebird. It wasn't a Black Market. It wasn't a Chocky's Church. It wasn't a cool record shop. It was a record shop from the 60s, a dusty old record shop. Nothing dance about it. They didn't have lots of listening booths to listen, because that was the thing. It became a thing, didn't it? In the mid 80s, there was just one deck in the shop. By the time
it was like a rave in the shop, wasn't it? Everyone would be going for it.
Black Market really sort of modernised and revolutionized record shops in that there was listening decks, and like it was a different experience by then. Do you get what I mean? It was like when you went into Music Power and when you went into Groove in like 85, 86, it was just the person behind the counter playing you the records. But by 89, 90, Black Market had listening booths and all, listening decks for people to go through. But this record shop was nothing like that. Pulse Music was nothing like that. And we went in there and they were blasting out. This was like the summer of 89, all the like Love Will Find a Ways. It was that era, Career, Let Me Love You for Tonight, all of that kind of thing. And the record shop was like in the heart of Centreforce and Sunrise. And once I'd got the job in there, my dad said to Dave, who owned it, "Can my son have a job in here, mate?" And Dave was like, "Yeah, we're looking for a Saturday boy." Now, check this. Dave gave me £12 a day. I'd been thrown out of school by this point. Dave gave me £12 on a Saturday. When I was out doing the phone boxes with my dad and working on the markets with my uncles, as a 14-year-old, I was making £200-ish a week and acquiring all these records. Dave said, "Yep, he can come and work in the shop for £12 on a Saturday," right? It was nothing compared to what we was getting on the markets, but I just had to be in the record shop. I had to be in the record shop. And at that time, all of not all, but a whole host of Centreforce DJs, Sunrise DJs were all going into that shop buying records. Also, you had like Kenny Ken was going in there, LSD was going in there. Shut Up and Dance would take their music around that they was making in 89, 90. I'm talking 89, early 90. Hype would go in there. promoters, Rain Dance, Genesis, everyone would drop off their flyers, and Labyrinth, Joe and Sue Labyrinth, lived smack bang opposite the record shop. So you had the record shop, then you had flats across the road, and that's where they lived, right? So I was like 14 in 89, going on to 15 in 1990. So in 88, when I did my first DJ gig in a pub, which was an acid house party to loads of people 10 years older than me, off their face on ecstasy, screaming out acid, and that was the point in which it was like, more acid records, more, and hip-hop kind of left me just because of my age and being swept along with what was happening in England and London. So then found myself in the record shop, then found, like, you know, I'd listen to Sunrise, I'd listen to Centerforce, and all these people would come into the record shop and buy that, and I'd listen and go, you know, they'd be in the shop, buy their records, then I'd listen to them on the radio, play those records. It was so exciting to me. And then as I got to know everyone, Joe, and realising that Joe, like Labyrinth was mythical in that 89 period, as was Genesis, as was Centerforce. You know, there was, you know, you had these big energies and biologies and stuff, but you also had things like Labyrinth and Fantastic Ibiza and Rat Pack, and it's funny. It's like you have your bigger things that are set in stone as like these the bigger like pizzazz things, but then you have this underground stuff. Much like music, you have more commercial records that are amazing, and you have more underground records that are amazing. And Labyrinth and a few of those kind of events were that kind of thing, like really undergroundy kind of things. So Joe Labyrinth was in the record shop one day, and I said to him, you know, really nervous 14, 15-year-old, can I come and play at your club, mate? And he was like, yeah, of course you can. Come and play. And I was like,
brilliant.
What fucking hell? And this was like early 1990. My dad takes me. He sits outside the first few times. He sits outside. This is at Four Aces in Dalston. Incidentally, the first ever proper club I went to was when I was 14, which was Labyrinth at Silver City in Wood Green, late 89. When I tell people that I was 14, no one believes me. Like, but when I was 14, me and Anthony, and it was all so closely connected. My family was from Wood Green, Music Power Records in Haringey, the family's market stalls were around Wood Green. My first gig was in the Lordship pub in Wood Green when I was 13, right? To people on drugs playing acid music. And so the first ever rave I found myself in was like the latter end of 89, Labyrinth, Silver City, Wood Green, which is now the bingo hall, right? And me and Anthony went. Me and Anthony, our best friend from school, still to this day. And there was like Kenny Ken and Adrian Age and Easy Mo, and it was just mind blowing. It was like if the party in the Lordship pub the year previous was mind blowing, this was the real deal. This was like proper DJs, proper sound system. You know, this was wow.
Billy, it must have been like a spiritual awakening.
Hey, this is what I want to do. You know, I'd already made that decision in 88 that being a dance acid rave DJ was my thing. But then on first hearing Electro 4 or 5 years previous, it was already setting me hypnotic, the hypnotic placing of brilliant music. You know, that's what Electros did with going from one track to the next.
And also, Billy, with the acid house, the sound of the Moog and the acids, like them little sounds.
It just incredible. And then here I am, only not even a year, 6 to 8 months after first ever going to Labyrinth at Silver City, here I am being taken to Labyrinth at their new club, Four Aces.
That's right.
And literally, you couldn't make it up. 15 years of age, being dropped off to Labyrinth 2000 AD at the Four Aces by your dad. I couldn't mix. I didn't even have a set of decks at home. I just had one turntable and all of this music, right? And I worked in the record shop, and I didn't even have a DJ name. I did not even have a DJ name. Go into the club, go up to meet, say hello to Joe and Sue. Yeah, that's where the DJ, and it, and I'm, wow, like I'm 15 and I'm in Four Aces, Labyrinth, 2000 AD, Dalston, haven't got a DJ name, haven't got a clue how to mix, completely out of sorts with myself, like all these older people. It was, and here I am.
I'll tell you what, it took some balls to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and after, and I was going for like 3, 4, 5 weeks, every Friday and Saturday doing the first set. Literally walking in, head down, box of records. It weren't back there, boxes of records in. Too nervous to say hello to anyone. I knew Joe from the record shop and Sue from the record shop. Didn't ask for money, just nothing. Right, one night, this was like 6 weeks in, and my dad's an absolute character, right? And he was like 10, 15 years older than Joe and Sue and Phil and Denise, the promoters, right? So I've come off the decks one night, because I was doing like the first hour at first, doing the first hour and learning how to warm up the crowd. And always by the end of my sets, there would always be a half full club kind of thing. So I was getting the buzz of playing this music and seeing how people responded in this amazing club. One night I've come off the decks after 6 weeks. My dad's only in the club, because previously he'd just been outside waiting for me. So I'd finish at like 11. I think the club used to open at 11 in the early days. Yeah, it opened at 11. So I'd come off the decks at 12 and then we'd be off kind of thing. This one night I've come off at 12. Imagine being 15, already nervous of the world that you're in. Come my dad's office. No, my dad is had a pill and he's out the front of the club going, "Oh, fucking no, Joe. I know, Phil. They're all from Tottenham. I know all these little fuckers," because they was all younger than him. They was all younger than him, and it turns out the Phil from Desire 2000 AD, Joe Labyrinth, all from Tottenham, all knew my uncles, all knew everyone. And then here's my dad discovered ecstasy. Literally discovered ecstasy, as if like a shy 15-year-old teenager needs, bearing in mind Kenny, Adrian Age, Vinyl Matt, all of these people were 8, 10, 12 years older than me. The club full of like older people going out raving, 20, 25, because it was an older scene then. Like the scene in like the late 80s and into 1990, it was an older scene. So there's all these like, there's a 15-year-old, you're 15, there's all these women about, and there's your fucking dad. Discovered ecstasy. And I had, like I said, I had no DJ name. After 6 to 8 weeks, a couple of months of doing the warm-up set, Joe and Phil were like, "Oh, you need a DJ name. And I was like, why? Because I never had aspirations of being on a flyer. I just loved records. I just loved records.
I loved playing records, yeah.
Playing records, right?
So how did the name come about?
Right. So they say to me, you need a DJ name, right? So in the record shop, when I first started, everyone has to start somewhere and learn their trade. So in the record shop, before I was allowed out the front to meet everyone and play records to people, I had to learn how the shop runs. So I used to have to, this was before computers, I used to have to file the records, give it a number, 10,326, and put it in its place out the back, put it in its place. And when a new record used to come in, Mervyn and Dave used to say, book 'em, Dano. That was the big thing. Book 'em, Dano.
Yeah.
So
Hawaii 5-0, wasn't it?
Hawaii 5-0.
Yeah,
book 'em, Dano. New record would come in, number it, book it, Dano. And that was the thing in the record shop. So I said to Phil and Joe, Danny, book 'em. They said, you can't be that because there's a new DJ just started at Rain Dance whose name's Danny Bookham, LTJ Bookham. So I couldn't be that, right? And that was the first choice of a DJ name to put on the Labyrinth 2000 AD flyers. Mervyn in the record shop. Now, I have one of the most stupid comedic DJ names of the rave scene. Bearing in mind I'm 15, he says, Billy Bunter. Mervyn. Because Mervyn was on Centerfolds at the time. And if Mervyn says I've got to be Billy Bunter, then I'm Billy Bunter, kind of thing. That was no business acumen, no understanding of marketing, I didn't want to DJ. I didn't care. Like, here I am DJing. Even though my dad's burst my bubble a bit, discovering ecstasy and all of this stuff, this is what I want to do. And so I said to Phil and Joe, Billy Bunter. And they both pissed themselves laughing. And I'm thinking, piss-taking bastards. Like Mervyn says, they added the Daniel to it. So the first lot of flyers was Billy Daniel Bunter. And yeah, that's it. And from that point on, in 1990, it's all I've done, DJ'd in raves every weekend of my life. Been through so many different twists and turns of it all. Like you touched on earlier, like how rapidly the rave scene changed continually. And I was part of all of those different changes. And now in the era that we find ourselves in, especially as older people, and this goes now back to the hip hop and the electro and my love. For me, now it's all about the art. It's all about the heritage. It's all about the history. It's all about what we can talk through books and art galleries and seminars, as well as the music and the sets. But yeah, it was a crazy time being 15 years of age in amongst ultimately a land of giants, from footballigans to drug dealers to ravers 10 years older than me, to discovering drugs myself, to seeing your dad off his face. And it was a mad time, but it was pretty, I didn't necessarily feel out of sorts, or like, it's only now when I look back, it's like, wow, because already I'd been, the things that I was doing with my dad and uncles at 10, 11, 12 years of age, none of it really fazed me. And none of the characters, like when people would say, like when you read all the stories in the books of the early books of the football hooligans and the scene and all that, these were the people who was giving me my breaks. I was around, and it never, for whatever reason, it never fazed me.
I used to, Billy, I used to see it. I mean, every now and again it would kick off in the clubs. I remember going to a few clubs, and it wasn't always peace, unity, and love. Sometimes, there was, in the early days, did used to kind of kick off fights and all sorts.
Do you know what the mad thing is? Like in the Labyrinth days, you would, right, and I think this is what made Labyrinth so good, and 2000 AD and Desire so good. Those times there, that club in particular never had fights, but the aggro that was outside, away from everyone, was evident. And a lot of promoters there, for me, there was like, and it's kind of still to this day, like we put on a lot of raves and a lot of events through our company, and then you had certain promoters and Phil and Joe from Labyrinth, Eastman from Jungle Fever, Paul Ibiza from Fantastic Ibiza. Certain promoters were brilliant at controlling the trouble and keeping it away from everyone, and knowing and also, because they was good at that, they also, as promoters, commanded respect in their actions, if you like. So there was certain events that the trouble was completely kept separate. Earlier, when I was on my bike ride, I was listening to an old set, and all the way through it is security, you know? And it's like, some promoters completely had the respect of their area, the punters, who would, you know, because like sometimes it gets dressed up that this was this mythical era where everyone was cuddling each other, pilled up on ecstasy. And what happened within the raves was so different to sometimes what was happening outside of the raves, and the outside elements and the things, and all those stories that were told in like the early magazines and all of those sort of like early 88, 89 kind of Roger Cook documentaries that happened. That stuff really was happening behind the scenes, with people taking over raves, gun crime behind the scenes of taking over events. You know, like there was that element to it. But you had promoters like Labyrinth, 2000 AD, Jungle Fever, Fantastic Ibiza, a whole host of people, especially when these events were happening in East London and North London. They managed to keep a cap on that stuff and have it under control. And I think, because if you actually remember back, and you'll know this, was, you know, like by the time of jungle, hardcore and all that stuff, people would go, it all used to be under one roof in 88, 89. Do you remember that? It was all one thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually, because if you remember back, you had your Shums, you had your Boyzone, and Boyzone, you know, like Terry Farley, love Terry Farley, huge influence over me. But do you remember they used to not like the warehouse scene as much? The warehouse scene wasn't part of that kind of Balearic or that West End scene. It was like you had these things going on in the East End. You had these things going on in North London. They was different. Those warehousey, those late 89, early 90s bleeps and bassy kind of, they was different to your you know, you had your Danny Ramplings, Terry Farleys, that kind of world. Then you had a different world in the warehouses and stuff. You know, it was. Do you know,
Billy? Do you know what it was as well? I think what it was, because we was quite a few years older, it was kind of like a bit of an older crowd. Like, you know, you used to go to the Boyzone dues, special branches, and all these dues. It was kind of people of my generation, people in their kind of mid-50s.
Yeah. Well, I'm enthralled by the Balearic beats. I'm enthralled by the alternate scene. Like, again, over on that other wall, I've got as many records as I've got on this wall. It is like a complete history of Balearic beats, acid house, the full fit. You know, I love that whole thing of like Trevor Fung. He's like an absolute. Like Trevor Fung, I'm in awe of Trevor Fung and his influence over alternate music, Balearic beats, his influence over, you know, his education of how he educated people when he was going to Ibiza and bringing back all of this alternate music. But there's a few things going on in that. One, it wasn't all hugging each other, because behind the scenes there was lots of other things going on, violence and takeover of raves and stuff like that. And then also the splits that people kind of blame 1993 and the jungle and hardcore scene for, there was splits in 88, 89. You had the Balearic scene, New Beat, you had Acid House, you had the Warehouse, you had sweaty warehouse events as opposed to like more clubby, intimate house. Not trendy. Trendy's not the word, but there was splits in areas and styles of DJs and musics and stuff
totally,
like that.
Totally. And
go on, mate.
Billy, with that kind of Balearic kind of, you know, alternative sound, have you got like a few like little favourites? Did you love Scarlet Fantastic? No memories tonight. No memories tonight. Water Boys, Hole in the Moon. Yeah.
Julio, Dip, Piscopo, Stop Bajon. You had Kalijah. Oh, mate, that Jesus on the payroll. Chris Rea, Josephine.
Yeah.
City Lights. You had William Pitt, City Lights. And how I learned about all of that music, I learned about all of that, again, being young. And people are like, how do you know this stuff? Those first lot of acid, the first gig that I did in Wood Green, when we was playing all of our acid parties, me and Anthony were playing all of our acid records, people were coming up, because it was an older crowd. They was all 25 plus, as you would have been when we was that age, right? They were going, play Carly Simon, why? And we're like, play Waterboys, I've never fucking heard of Waterboys, Hole in the Moon. I was in Groove Records buying You Know How to Reach Us a year previous. My best mates just taught me about like Pierre and future acid tracks. And what? Waterboys, Hole of the Moon? What are you talking about? then when I started working in Pools for Music in Bethnal Green a year later, I started understanding about all of this music. And I tell you how I started understanding about all of this music. Tony Wilson used to come in the record shop.
Yeah, Tony Wilson,
right?
Yeah, wicked.
And Tony Wilson was an absolute groundbreaker when it comes to Waterboys, Hole in the Moon, all this stuff, right? Then, mate, it was so alien to me that like DJs were coming in buying Chris Rea, Josephine from Centreforce, and I was like, hip house I got, rap, acid house I got. It was like. And then I started understanding, and then in Wood Green, the people who give me my first gig in the Lordship pub, they started putting on some more regular things around that area. So then I was equipped with Waterboys, I was equipped with William Pitt, I was equipped with Chris Rea, Josephine, and that kind of ilk of records, right? And so then we would play. Again, I was like 14. I would play, me and Anthony would play all night at house parties or things in the back rooms of pubs around that area. And of course, at the end of the night, we would then have Waterboys and then records without ever going to Fascination and hearing Tony Wilson. We'd hear about Down Tavern. But as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, I'm not getting into Down Tavern. And then that kind of led to discovering all of that stuff. So again, it's that road to discovery. It's scratching the surface beyond all of that, beyond what you first hear, you know. And it's like, yeah, there was make no mistake, there was a number of different ecstasy fueled early rave scenes.
Big time.
And it boils down to a long line of musical elitism and snobbery. So, you know, soul and funk heads would not listen to that early electro and rap. Balearic heads were, oh no, acid house, the evil acid. Remember they used to call acid house Balearic's evil acid brother and cousin and stuff like that. It's always been there. It's always, and then in like the early 90s when like so much of the music was still the same tempo, but you know, you'd have more housey things going on in the West End, and then things like Labyrinth and that were more your underground. And then by 93, we're into our happy, or we're into our jungle, or we're into our progressive house. it was nothing new. It was like hardcore and jungle music didn't all of a sudden magically split up the rave scene, because it had already been into all of these different periods of time. You know, like I remember actually, and this sums it up for me, like the group of people who I first started DJing for in Wood Green, who were all 10 years older than me, and into their Water Boys and into their Scarlet Fantastic, No Memories Tonight, come on, Mandy Smith, I just can't wait. All of those records.
Human League, Fascination. Keep
Fascination.
feeling fascination.
And you know what? I got it. I'll get on to this point in a bit once I've. So the older lads from the market who first let me DJ for them, they one night come to Labyrinth in 1990. And by 1990, things were changing for that scene of people, right? They come, and I remember them distinctly going, oh, it's all fucking young in here. They was like 25, 28, and the Labyrinth crowd was like 20, 21. And it is just musical, it's snobbery, elitism, growing up, like things change. Things move on and things change, you know?
They evolved, didn't they, Billy?
Yeah,
they evolved.
Yeah, I remember, right? This is what I was thinking before. So I have a complete fascination with all this different music and all the different histories. And, you know, so we've not only spoke about electro and hip hop and spoke about like music that was being made in Detroit during the riots in the late 60s. We've then touched on Balearic beat. There's so much history, right? When I discovered ecstasy when I was 15, I went to a boys' own party with the older lads from the market. Like, could you imagine now taking a 15-year-old to pop pills with you? Right? And I'd been used to DJing at Labyrinth every weekend, but I discovered ecstasy when I was 15, absolutely loved it, hugging everyone, you know, brilliant. And they took me to a boys' own party, which was playing all of the Human Leagues and stuff like that, right? This was like mid-90, late 90, the year 1990. And it was so different. Like, people had leather jackets on, jeans. I had a whistle. The people, I remember it.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah.
People were moaning. And obviously I was so much younger.
You thought, yeah.
There's always been different scenes, and they've always been for whether it's different age groups, different people from different walks of life. But yeah, there was those. For me, what has always led me to the more grimier raves and the more grimier events, if you like, is I think like when you get a really underground place like the Four Aces, when you get radio stations like Cool FM, when you get, you know, I've always, and this is probably taking me back to the subway arts and the roughness of electro and hearing that, I've always gravitated towards the more grimier things. And like now, like my kind of first experience of being a rave DJ, if you like, a professional rave DJ, was the Labyrinth. So, and it was one of the grimiest places ever, alongside Dungeons and when they talk about like everyone under one roof, even though the musics were so split in different parts of London and different parts of the country, when you get those grimy places or grimy warehouses or grimy spots where everyone's under one roof, that's where the dream is. That's where the like this whole mythical thing of like everyone under one roof, you know. And listen, amazing times that never leave us, mate. No matter how old me and you get, it never leaves us.
You know, it was an incredible time, and you know, it was. You could go clubbing, Billy, couldn't you? Like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You know, there was every night of the week. It was going off somewhere in London, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the early, like in like 1991, the people I went raving with, you'd go Thursday night to rage. I'd play on the Friday and Saturday night. There was always after parties and parties that went on till Sunday night, Monday morning. It was an amazing time. Thankfully, me and you are here to tell the tale. A lot of people, you know, a lot of people didn't make it, and a lot of people haven't got to our age. But it was a magical time, such a different time socially, such a different time. Just the aesthetic of how the world thinks. And I think, not to get too deep, the internet has changed a lot. Has changed the modern, you know, what with like the sheer amount of upheaval in recent years. Then the internet, it was simpler then.
It was a lot simpler, and it felt like there was a lot more kind of soul and energy within the clubs. Because you wasn't standing there doing selfies and videoing everything, was he? You was there to like have a spiritual awakening with this music.
Yeah.
And everyone was like just literally just going for it on the dance floor. With the smoke machine, the lasers, you know, everything about it. It was just like a spiritual awakening. It was like, yeah, come on. And like, it was just incredible.
It was just all round. It was simpler times in that, like, you know, when it was like Turnmills, Labyrinth, there was a few clubs that were the first clubs to get 6 a.m. license after they sort of shut all the illegal warehouse parties down. Then it went underground, you know, places like Astoria, Turnmill. You know, there was some real standout clubs before the sort of Ministry of Sound era.
There's some amazing clubs.
Yeah, and when those Rage,
Heaven,
yeah, and when you got like when those 6 a.m. licenses come in for the first wave of clubs in like early '91, I think it was, you had like, even then, like, those clubs weren't selling alcohol; it was just water. You didn't have to prove your ID. Come on, I'm talking about going into clubs when I was 14. Like when I do posts of the old days on my page, people come on and say, I was 14, 15 getting in to that club and this club and that club. It was just simpler times. There wasn't the
there's no ID checks. I was the same. No, I was going clubbing at 15. 1985, I went to my first club. You know, it was like there was no checking of your ID or any of that, was there? You just go in there and have a good time.
None whatsoever. We all remember our entry levels and our first times we went to a club and we shouldn't have been in there, in the same way that when it's the same feeling as when you buy alcohol when you shouldn't have been. Like, do you remember Thunderbirds? That was the big thing.
Yeah, and White Lightning.
Red and blue Thunderbirds.
Yeah,
the gateway booze up, right? But I remember when me and Anthony went to Silver City for the first time, and you lie and you go, yeah, we're 18. Oh, we fuck. 14 and like 16, whatever age it was, right? And they let you in. Take your tenner and let you in. Go on, get yourself in there. Fucking have some fun.
And have a good time. Yeah.
And have a good time. And I couldn't ever begin to imagine my kids are 25 and 28 now, but I could never imagine letting them or being aware of them going to an acid house drug den when they was 14. And like, you couldn't even imagine it being able to happen now.
Well, it wouldn't happen now.
With the ID and with the checks. And it was undoubtedly a much simpler time for a whole lot of different aspects, for a whole lot of different. The rules and regulations were different. It was a completely different social climate. You did not have the internet throwing so much opinion and so much good and bad into people's brains. And it was just, we really did have a simpler time. For that, there was that kind of snapshot from the late 80s to the early 90s where, you know, on one hand in this interview we've said, like, behind the scenes there was trouble. You did have different styles of musical events, and there was some things snobbery and some things more sort of not so. And it's like, but there was that snapshot there was that period that really, I really truly believe that point in time changed so much about Britain and British youth culture, you know, and there's a lot of it that isn't just these mythical stories set in stone to create some sort of like, oh, wasn't time better then? In no way am I saying time was better then, because my daughter still, she goes out and comes in buzzing, oh, I've had a brilliant night here, there and everywhere. But our era, from my age to you guys' age, really did change so much socially, the friends, the marriages, the different cultures and colours, learning about each other and stuff. It really, really was different. It really was a unique landscape and moment in time.
It really was.
It really was. And also the other thing that is so evident is the potency of the music. So whether it's the acid house music scene, where, you know, so if you take your acid records, or if you take your more housey records, Phase 2 Reaching, Joe Smooth, Promised Land, the more vocally house, right through to the jungle and the breakbeat hardcore and all what happened in between. Even now, that music is being recreated continually in a new style by new producers or old producers still capturing that moment. The music from that era has lasted forever, either in the original tracks or the brand new music being made. So we're not necessarily we're not seeing new music or things that we've never not heard before, but we're most certainly seeing new generations and new people put their slant on it. So that's how important that era was. You then have the importance, you know, like the era that we're in now is so different. And the ethos that we had of black and white uniting, rich and poor uniting, you now have, you know, the LBQT plus community. You have so many different mindsets in the modern world, and modern rave encapsulates all of that. It encapsulates so our era was what united rich and poor and different cultures. This era is now uniting all that's at the forefront now of going on, and that's one thing that rave has. That's one thing that this music has. It gives people a place to connect and be themselves and express themselves. So whether it was in 89, 90, or whether it's in 2022, whatever it is that however you want to live your life, however you want to be, however your mind, whoever the person is that you want to be, rave will also always be this place where you can express yourself. You really, really can. And I think the inception of 30 to 32, 34 years ago, the main ethoses are there in this generation. The music doesn't necessarily change much. Tempos, I hear so much and get sent so much new hardcore and get sent so much new jungle and acid house by people half our age. And for me, it's more the spirit. They're capturing a vibe, but in a new thing. But it's they're applying all what we loved. You know, like you could go and you could express yourself at these things. The world, what was ever happening in the news, or what was the more popular trends, or no, this is escape.
Yeah, you know you're escaping it. You're taking it. Do
you know what? Escape, right? The level of walking into a club and hearing all this stuff is escapism.
100%, 100%, Billy. Yeah.
But now, when we are talking about, or whether we're writing books of like how football hooligans, you know, someone from Tottenham was cuddling someone from Arsenal or whatever, or whether like in all of the books, it's like you actually see black people cuddling white people or rich people next to poor people, right? So the escapism was there. That was the thing of going in. But now through the years and decades and everything, that's what changed so much, and that's what makes this rave scene and this British culture so important, that the escapism actually created some wonderful realities, some really good realities and some really good understandings between people that in the 80s might not have thought like that. We know that it was a different landscape. And this is what this thing creates. And then now in this modern generation, post-COVID, post everything that's been going on in the past few years, now there's a whole new lot of beliefs and things that the younger generation want. And rave music, once again, goes beyond just being like an escapism in which they're making music or going into raves and playing to diverse crowds. They're then taking that outside of the scene and outside of the escapism and creating new realities.
So yeah, like the younger generation, they're really kind of embracing it, aren't they? You know.
I love them, and like with our,
they're basically they're the future. The younger generation are our future, and you know,
they absolutely are. And like, there's this huge wave, and we were saying about post-COVID. There's this huge wave and a new generation of like hardcore, old school producers, stroke DJs, jungle DJs, like all from like 18 to 30 years of age, who are kind of taking the music, the ethos, the energy, the vibe, and just like we was away from like with those musics away from the houseier, more commercial scene, so is this generation, and they absolutely enthrall me and inspire me, and they like evoke spirits. Like there's a number of DJs from like Mixtress to Arcane to Pete Cannon to Sherelle. There's all this, there's this generation of new's the wrong word, because lots of them have been doing it for like 10 years, but even longer, like Pete Cannon, Coco Bryce, certain people, they've been out there for like 10, 15, 20 years. Tim Reaper grinding, making this music, right? Whether it's old school inspired, whether it's jungle inspired, there's loads. So sorry for anyone who I've missed, especially the amount of people whose music that I play. And especially like think of it this way, like, you know, like in like 88, 89, 90, there was this like huge ball of energy, like what we've touched on, like, fuck everyone, we're having our warehouse parties, we're having our acid parties, black and white people are uniting, listening to this music, football hooligans are getting on for once, and it all come from this era that's documented of like Thatcher's Britain and disdain it across the country, you know, because we're talking from a London centric point of view, but obviously you had it in Manchester, you had it in Leeds, what we're talking about was happening all over. And now post-COVID, you have this amazing ball of energy, from creative energy from people half our age, even younger than my kids, who are like discovering the same music and the same energies that we loved about the rave scene and what driv us to there, and they're taking that and they're making this jungle and they're making this hardcore music, and they're taking these ethoses and togetherness, this whole together vibe, and what we were saying, the escapism in the dance floor actually should, and I've always believed this, should become reality of how these ravers, how these artists, how these human beings act in life, full stop. It shouldn't just be in a club that you're allowed to escape and be who you want to be. It shouldn't just be for one night whilst you're on it, that like all of a sudden you understand what love and understanding of someone from a different social climate or different financial structure and blah, 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 blah. It's like, that should not be lost once you walk out of the escapism. It makes sense in my head that humans should get on like this, but sadly we know that doesn't really happen. But for a lot of these new, just like us, into the rave scene and what we learned from it and each other, we have this new generation of people now who are taking the music, taking the ethos, taking what they believe in, whatever their social beliefs are, and putting it into the same thing that we was all into. And they're excited. And it's like, we have an event called the Rave Story, which celebrates the rave scene's history, which is art. We do an art gallery. We have rooms of rave music. We have record shops. We have seminars. And they always happened pre-COVID, and they always celebrated this 88 to 94 thing, which was a golden year, which was all this stuff happened. Acid, Balearic, bleeps and bass, jungle, hardcore, all this stuff happened, right? And then post-COVID, once we've brought the event back, I'm looking around going, wow, this young 24-year-old is making the most amazing jungle. Wow, this, you know, there's all this stuff. And it's like, right, we're promoting them. We're putting them on the platform. They evoke our spirits. Not only do they evoke the spirits that we all believed in, they're adding their new twist to it. They're adding new things to it. They're adding new social beliefs. They're adding new styles of energies and musics to it. And it's mad because, like, it was meant for me to be a rave DJ from first ever playing in the Lordship pub and not being able to mix records and not having a DJ name, and you should not really be doing this at 13, and here you are in a world of people screaming out acid. And it's what I've done all my life, and now, like, I see this and feel, it's not even seeing, it's feeling what this new generation are doing. And it's like, for me, it's not even my place to be DJing with them. It's like, for me, it's my place as like a historian of this stuff and someone who releases books and puts on raves, and it's my place to let them utilize my platform as opposed to me going, more gigs for me. Like, it's not my, just like I used to be embarrassed of my dad being off his nut, like discovering this thing. I'm just proud to see a new generation take our thing into their world, into their passions, into their creativity, into their beliefs, and into the social things and the social climate that they have to navigate around. And
in some ways, Billy, it is a lot harder now for the younger generation because we've got all this social media, all this kind of pressure in your face, all this negative news. You know, that's why this rave, this house music scene is so important, because, as you said, it unifies everybody together, pushes peace, unity, love, and having fun, and everyone is literally, you know, having a fantastic time under one roof to this incredible music.
Yeah, do you know what? I hadn't really thought about it like this, and I set up a mental health charity during COVID, which is launching in a few weeks. It's basically a team of 28 people, a phone line. I've raised enough money to fund the phone line. It's a fully registered charity to help people, to reach out to people within our rave community that actually, you know, certain charities like Mind and that may seem for a different generation. So we've set up this charity called Safe Space Movement.
Safe Space Movement.
Safe Space Movement.
I'm going to put the link. I'm going to put the link in the description because I'm big time into all this, like, you know, promoting positivity massively. So I'm going to put the link below in this description.
Thank you. So the charity's called Safe Space Movement, and the website safespacemovement.co.uk. Right. Probably the chances are, once this podcast goes out, the phone lines will be up. It's been 2 years in the making. The team is like a team of professionals who have put this thing together to help people and who are going through problems with their mental health. And I'd never really thought about this with the younger generation, And how the charity come about was because my nephew, 25, he took his life through COVID. Life was overwhelming for him, and so it kind of made me want to use my platform and my influence and my ability. I have an ability to put on a rave and gather loads of people. I have an ability to play a set and loads of people like it, and I am truly grateful and humbled that has been my life. So I want to do something that gives back, and I want to do something to use my skills other than just gathering people to come to a rave. I want to gather people to set up a charity. I want to gather people to raise money to fund a charity, and that's what I did. But
amazing. Billy, I'll be honest, I'm pretty blown away that you're actually talking about this, because as I say, part of my show is also about positivity and getting people pushed into the positive light, positive direction, because there's so much negativity about, there's so much depression about, and it's a huge thing what you're doing, and I'm truly honored that you're doing this. I really am.
Well, this takes me to my point, which I hadn't thought about, and it's like, and again, this goes back to how much our lives were simpler in the late 80s, early 90s, even though there was financial strains and problems and Now, and someone within the charity said this to me, for the younger generation, is the pressure of even getting likes on photos that they're putting, the pressure of like different opinions, and like I get up in the morning and I look down my Twitter, I look down my Facebook, and it's like I put my fucking hell, my mind's spinning here of just the variation of like opinions and stuff like that. And with this new generation of artists and new generation of youngsters, they have so much coming at them. So the back to our ethos of rave going in, it is a great place for people to a road of discovery, be it through music, through relationships with people and stuff like that, in a world that is really, if it's overwhelming for our brains to sometimes take in and make sense of everything, like we're older people, and we're set in certain ways, but the internet shows us new things, like things that are going on, be it politically, financially. We are shown, even us, we're shown so much that alert our brains to, so a younger generation who have like lost a few years of their lives to being at home and blah. So on one hand, for me, I see so much creativity come out of that. On the other hand, I see a lot of people rushing to catch up, and and there is a lot going on.
Big time, massively. To be honest, for all generations, including us.
All generations.
There's a lot of madness happening at the moment, and as your T-shirt says, Billy, rave, not war.
Yeah,
rave, not war.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, with it, by the time you put this up, it will all be up and running. Like it's like it's a really in-depth thing setting up a charity, like especially one of this kind of magnitude and seriousness. But like, so it took a good year to earn our charity number. It took a good year to put a team of absolute professionals together, especially when it was all done through COVID. So there's some amazing people involved, from like mental health professionals, people who train and give mental first aid training, to legal teams putting together all of our paperwork and all of our legalities, getting the just earning the charity number, but with that comes like so much good stuff, like our other charitable organizations helping us, Microsoft giving us things. Like it's been like anything great is hard work to achieve, and it's been hard work setting it up. But when we launch, like I say, we have a team of 28 people round the clock, 24/7, answering the phone to people, and that was always the goal. And I always thought to myself that we're not going to come out of lockdown and the world all of a sudden becomes normal again. I think we actually come out of lockdown and it piled on a whole lot of pressure for people. It wasn't just a case of, lockdown's ended, way. I think that actually it's suppressed so much, and it's actually created quite a lot of uncertainty, or like things that you were aware of yourself you might not be aware of anymore, or you might. So much has changed from then, and I always thought that's within the community that I'm in, the rave community, that the charity and its meaning and what it stands for is something that can last forever and ever and ever and ever, especially post-COVID, and kind of thinking to myself, you know what? Life's not going to be the same for people. And if we can help in whatever way we can, like one of my biggest fundraisers that I did was I dedicated the first 6 months of this year to training to do a 350-mile bike ride across 4 days from Crystal Palace to Amsterdam. And I did it, and I raised enough money for the charity to run for a year just from that one bike ride. And yeah, it's something that's very sort of important to me to be able to do.
Well, I'm thinking, maybe once a year, you could set up like an event, working with all your DJ friends, with working with all these incredible artists that we've got through a big rave to basically bring in some money to help the charity.
Yeah, all of that. All of that kind of stuff's all in. All things that we're gonna do. I like the things as well that are things like 350-mile bike rides, or doing like, I don't know, going up the biggest mountains in Europe. And I like doing things like that because they kind of show people how serious we are about this. How serious we are. But yeah, we're in a completely different time in which, if we can help each other and if we can inspire each other, or if we can throw, like you say, you're into positivity and healthy mind, if we can help people, then I think we need to as human beings.
100%, Billy. Listen, we're gonna have to wrap it up soon.
Yeah. I can talk.
No, I know you can. I'm proper impressed. And Billy, what would you say? Because we're going to have to wrap this up shortly. So, what would you say would be some of your kind of, your biggest highlights, so far? I mean, obviously, one of the big highlights is probably setting up this charity. That must be a huge, thing for you to have done.
Yeah, first and foremost, the biggest highlight is still being here. Considering that, like, I do not know how I got through the first 5 years of my career without being able to mix. So the fact that I'm still here is a huge buzz. Secondly, is I met my long-suffering Mrs. Sonia at Labyrinth, and we had we've got 2 children. We've remained together for 30 years. Amazing. So that's a huge achievement come out of the rave scene. In recent times, it would be the charity, to know that the charity was set up out of, there's some really serious professionals who have gravitated towards this charity who are old jungle ravers or old acid house ravers. So that is huge. In recent times, my film deal, like the Love Dove Generation book, has now been signed. And I mean, the films, it's mad knowing that the film's happening. Like, every day I talk to the screenplay writer, every day I speak to the production team. Like I said earlier, it's mad. Like, that, you know, they've got ideas for the set to build Groove Records, to build Labyrinth, to build Silver City in Wood Green and all this stuff. So that's a huge achievement. Kind of like there's some kind of like when I was signed to Ministry of Sound, like and they're kind of not as, they're more sort of like DJ ego sort of achievements, like the first Ministry of Sound album we did. I mean, there's gold discs down on the floor. It sold like 150,000 copies, which was like one of the first gold selling old school mix albums. So achievements like that are great. Yeah, they you know, it's just there's been so much that's happened that sometimes you forget. You forget most. You forget most of this stuff. You know, you forget most of the stuff that you've done, because back to the very, very first things we were talking about in this interview. This is my life. This is why there's a film. This is why there's a charity. My love for music is more. It's not more important than my wife or my kids or my charity, but this is the essence beyond any gold disc, beyond or walls and others. This is it. Like, as long as there's music, I will keep doing all of this stuff. As long as I have this, and I can't see me ever losing the love for it, because I'm talking to you as excited about things in 1985 as if it was 1985. I'm as excited that I can use my history to help new artists as I was living that history. It's an honor that I can put my presence and what I've done into a charity to help that charity along with other like-minded people. So just being here and just doing what I'm doing, and just as long as there's music, I'm never not going to be doing all of this stuff.
It's absolutely, Billy, it's absolutely incredible. I'll be honest, I'm pretty blown away by this interview. You know, you can tell how much passion and positivity, you know, you've got. I'm absolutely blown away. And yeah, I can't wait. What I mean, if possible, we'll have to try and do a part 2 further on down once the film comes out and the charity's properly up and running. We'll have to kind of do a part 2, maybe get a few other people involved as well, like on a Zoom thing or whatever, in the back of the cab. We'll have to. Well,
that would be brilliant, because what we could maybe do is get some of the younger artists, some of the charity people. You know, like it would be good to do. You know, like, I tell you what would be good, like. You've had like Ragga Twins and people, and they're great friends of mine. Chocky, we all love Chocky. It'd be good to have some like different perspectives, you know. Like, it fascinates me that Chocky was part of the Rocksteady crew and went over there. You know, in fact, like Ragga Twins, Flinty and Demon's history,
they're wicked.
Absolutely,
they're amazing.
Fascinates me, right? And I'm gonna put an idea out there. I'm going to put an idea which I've shared with them, and I haven't got round to doing it. But the fact that I'm telling you the idea for people to see. If anyone nicks this idea, we know they've taken it from this here, right? So, where is the record? Right? So Flinty and D did a record with Shut Up and Dance, which samples Amen Brother. It was the B-side to Shine Eye Gal, right, in 1992. And whereas most people just use the Amen break, Shut Up and Dance was sampled the music as well from the Winstons. And what fascinates me about this track, and I want to do like a mini kind of, I'm giving my idea away here, a mini kind of, art gallery's not the word, but you know, like, you get these like little boutique things around Soho where you kind of celebrate a release or put some art and a spin on something. It fascinates me that the Winstons, Amen Brother, and the whole album that was from was made throughout the riots of Detroit in the late 60s. Then you have Ragga Twins, who obviously were Unity from the reggae sound system days, Shut Up and Dance obviously made some hip-hop, some British hip-hop in like 88, 89. And then by 92, they are making this hardcore music for jungle. But on the B-side of Shy and I Girl is ultimately this sort of British hip-hop track that's kind of pre-Fatboy Slim and pre that kind of breakbeaty sort of party breaks kind of stuff. But here's Flinty and Demon doing their sound system chatting over this late 60s breakbeat record out of Detroit, aimed at the rave scene on the B-side of Rave, that then becomes like a sound of like the Fatboy Slims and Timeless, and I really think there's something in that one record, in that one track. And I always say to Flinty and Demon, like, I really think we should celebrate and do more with this record, because you didn't all just sample the aim and breakbeat, you sampled the whole track. And yeah, I love Ragga Twins. They're my favourite MCs.
You know, the Ragga Twins are the people's people. You know, I mean, when I contacted Flinty, I was like, you know, can we do an interview in the back of my cab? He's like, yeah, of course. And it was an amazing interview I done with them. And they're so down to earth, so grounded, and they're always there. You know, I know they do a lot of charity events and all that sort of stuff as well.
They can do, listen, they are, I love them as artists. More importantly, I love them as human beings. It doesn't matter whether it's reggae, jungle, old school, hip hop, it breaks. It does not matter. They can just flow on anything you can give them, and they're so easy to vibe with, so easy to work alongside. Be it, you know, we've made tracks together, we've DJed lots of sets together, and I just think Ragga Twins are a national treasure to reggae culture, jungle culture, rave culture. They have been through it all. And yeah, I mean, we've digressed away from everything onto our love for the Ragga Twins, but yeah, they are, for me, they are everything that a UK artist within all the musics that we love. They are the ultimate. They are literally the ultimate in the way they conduct themselves, the way they make music, the way they project their energy and their vibe. You know, like they are. For me, sorry if this upsets anyone, but they are number one for me. They are like, they've done so much and continue to do so much. And if there was, whether you're a DJ, whether you're an MC, if there was someone that you should aspire to be in terms of personality and the way you carry yourself and just the sheer relentless hard work, they are your people.
Yeah, they're diamonds. They're diamond geezers, and big up to Flinty and Demon Rocker.
And what makes it even better is Demon Rockers is a DJ now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, Demon's a DJ, and I had some equipment and I give it to him, and he went away and he's become like a better DJ than all of us. so not only is he not only is he brilliant at MCing, he's now a better DJ than all of us.
Oh, wicked! Nah, I love Demon Rocker, man. He's wicked.
Oh, brilliant! And this year we did we do a holiday rave in Kavos in Corfu, which me and Demon are residents at, and now Demon, he comes and shows off, and not only does he MC on the boat parties, he
DJs as well. He DJs while he's MCing.
Oh,
yeah,
brilliant!
Wicked.
He's watching Flinty and D do an old reggae set and mix the tune down while they're on chatting. It's something to behold. It's like it's just, you can't help but being enthralled. Right.
So I was going to say very quickly, do you want to do a little shout out to anyone, or shout out to all the fans?
Oh, just shout to everyone who's keeping the vibe and the spirit alive, and still either loving the memories and loving the music, or the new generation who are taking the nostalgia and taking the heritage and doing great stuff with it. You know, it's like this thing lasts forever, and also big up all the old school hip hop heads like me and you. Just we just cannot let go, and we will never ever let go of the buzz and the insight of loving music that era give us, and the road to discovery that it give us.
Yeah, absolutely incredible interview, Billy. And we will do a part 2 further on down the line, maybe kind of middle of next year or something.
That's if people ain't too bored with this one.
No, it's been wicked chatting to you, my man. And anyone watching, subscribe to the channel. I've interviewed, as Billy said, Ragga Twins, Nicky Black Market, Brandon Block, Jay Strongman, Public Enemy, Said G, Ultra Magnetic MCs, Man Parish, loads of others. So, yeah, Billy, I hope you've enjoyed this too.
I've absolutely loved it, mate, and truly humbled to know that I'm on your channel with pretty much all my heroes. Jay Strongman, come on. Jay Strongman.
I know.
Legendary. Another name that in the mid-80s, going Music Power, going Groove, would be on Dingwall flyers. Like reading Chuck Berry and the Soul Searchers sleeve notes from come on, all of those names you just mentioned, if they're not pivotal underground UK heroes, Public Enemy, led us all onto a road of not just musical discovery but history discovery.
100%, 100%, Billy.
Big up on your amazing channel, mate, and thank you for letting me come on here and waffle away.
Billy, listen, I could listen to you for another 10 hours. And we will do a part 2.
I don't think my missus could in the other room because she's had to put up with all this for 30 years. So thank you very much, mate, and all the best.
Billy, you're a diamond geezer. And listen,
cheers, mate.
Peace, my man.
Yeah. Peace.